Hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I am your host, as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with the next video in my Michigan position by position series breakdown. Today we are going to be talking about the linebacking core, a ton of high quality players to get to today. But before we start off with our starting linebackers, I am going to take this time to go ahead and ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help out the channel if you did. And now with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by starting with the starting linebackers. And those two starters are, of course, Ernest Hausman and Jashawn Barham. Both of these players are fourth year true seniors, I believe. I believe they are out of eligibility this year, as well as Jimmy Rolder, I believe, is also out of eligibility this year. So I do want to take a quick second here before I get into the breakdowns of both of these players. I do want to take a quick second here to talk about the future of this position and the position group as a whole. The reality of the situation is that even though I do feel very confident in this position group's ability to perform at a high level this year, maybe the most confident of any position group, I feel that it has the ability to perform at a high level. However, next year there is not going to be a lot of experience at this position. You're losing your top three guys, all right? So how does that impact this year? Because we're not talking about next year. We're talking about this year and this year's linebacking core. Well, it means that I want to see the young guys play. All right. The reality of the situation is that Michigan is probably not going to be in a whole lot of blowouts this year. So I don't know how often we're going to see the depth pieces this year. But I think they still need to play. I think they still need to get on the field. Specifically, one true freshman that we'll get to towards the end of this video. I really want to see him on the field. Very high on him. But overall, experience matters at linebacker a lot more than it does at other positions. Like defensive end, you can have not a lot of position and we're going to rotate you in and you'll get experience and you'll be fine. Linebacking core, kind of get that a little bit. If you're an outside corner, you're not getting that at all. You're not rotating. You're on the field or you're not on the field. Safeties, you rotate quite a bit. Nickel corners, you can rotate quite a bit. Defensive linemen as well. You can rotate on the offensive line. It's not great. Quarterback position is obviously the most important position for experience because quarterback is the most important position for everywhere. You can rotate wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, no problem. So really, quarterback is the most important position for experience and also the hardest to get experienced at. Linebacker's probably number two, or cornerback is probably number two, and linebacker's probably number three. So the lack of experience heading into next year is concerning. And that, would push me to allow the young kids some playing time. Maybe early on in games, or if it does, you are getting to that, like 17-point lead sort of area, start rotating them in more. If you can get them 100, 150 snaps, that's going to be so beneficial for this team next year. All right. Now, getting into the players themselves, you saw the thumbnail of this video. You know that I'm very high on Ernest Hausman. All right. This guy is a fantastic athlete for the position. And more so than that, he understands how to move. Okay. This is a big time player. He's maybe the best linebacker Michigan has had since Devin Bush. I think he's spectacular. Okay. I think he's going to take that leap this year into becoming a first-round caliber player. I think there are a couple players on Michigan's roster that could do that, that had the potential to do that. We already talked about Derek Moore on the defensive line. But Ernest Hausman, to me, even if he doesn't take that next step up and he just plays like he did last year, which was still exceptionally, he still might go in the first round because he's a great athlete for the position. And it's not a particularly strong linebacker class, at least based off of what I can think of off the top of my head. I haven't done a ton of work because the draft is like 9 months away. Nevertheless, Ernest Hausman, fantastic player. I think he's got a chance to be a first-round pick. As far as Jayshon Barham comes concerned, I do think he's a draftable prospect. I think he's a draftable athlete. The problem with him is that he can't cover. And that is a problem, a major problem, especially at the NFL level. However, I do think he can get better, A, but B, he can be used as a blitzing linebacker, or you just take him off the field when you want to go dime. Very easy for you to do. I think he's going to be a special teams phenom. He'll destroy people on special teams because he's a very good athlete. And I think a lot of the reason why he struggled at times last year, especially early on in the season, was because Wink Martindale was asking him to do NFL linebacker things from the Mike position, and he is not going to be a Mike at the next level. He's either going to be a Will or a Sam. And that did not work out. Now, as the year went on, Ernest Hausman started to take more of that role, and they started to blitz Jayshon Barham more. And that's when Jayshon Barham started to figure it out a little bit. In fact, he was so good at blitzing, there was a rumor early on in the offseason that Michigan was going to convert him to defensive end. I don't know if there was any truth to that or not, but it was widely talked about that Jayshon Barham was going to convert to defensive end. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea if you can put on another 15, 20 pounds, get up to 245, 250. I'm not sure that's a horrible idea because he's can potentially end up being very good at that position. Now, all that being said, again, I don't know a whole lot about the linebacker situations in the Big Ten, but I would be shocked if this isn't a top 3 linebacker duo in the Big Ten and probably a top 10 linebacker duo in all of college football. And then you factor in the depth that this team has. This might just be a top 5 to top 10 linebacking core in college football this year. And part of having a really good linebacking core is having really good backup linebackers, okay? These are players that I'm either very confident are going to play or really, really honestly should get on the field because they're going to become so important next year, all right? On the left here, number 18, which I don't actually think that's his number. I think he changed his number. I don't think it's 18 anymore. Is Cole Sullivan, of course, who is a linebacker that a ton of people, insiders, have been all over the place talking about him. They're like, oh, man, this guy is the truth. He is the second coming of every great linebacker that you can ever think of. I've heard everybody talking about him last year, even as a true freshman, all right? So he's probably going to see the playing time a lot this year, especially if Michigan does end up getting some blowouts on some teams. Now, the other player is Jimmy Rolder, number 30. And I have never particularly liked Jimmy Rolder. To me, he's just a less athletic version of Jayshon Barham. But last year, he did kind of improve quite a bit. So I'm hoping he could take another step up here and become a serviceable linebacker that you can rotate in, or God forbid, if anybody gets hurt, can come in and start. He is a senior. He'll know where to line up. He'll know the calls. He'll be able to probably at least survive at that position. So you could do a lot worse than him. But Sullivan and the two players we're going to talk about in the depth linebackers for, I have maybe even more confidence in than Jimmy Rolder. But just because I haven't seen it from Jimmy Rolder yet doesn't mean really anything. He can come out this year and be very, very good and maybe even get himself into the draftable conversation. All right, that's a real scenario. I don't know how likely it is, but that's a real scenario. Mason Curtis, on the other hand, is big, strong, fast, athletic. Everybody's talking about him like, oh yeah, this is that guy. So I am excited to see him play after he redshirted last season, and we did not see him a whole lot, if we saw him at all, last year. And finally, we have the two depth position players that I want to talk about a lot today, and that is going to be, shout out to the name Nathaniel Owusu Boateng, the brother of Jeremiah Owusu Karamoa, who was a fantastic player for Notre Dame a few years ago, ended up getting drafted, I think, in the second round of the Browns. Nevertheless, Nathaniel Owusu Boateng is on the left. He, I don't believe, is wearing number 1. I think he's number 12. Yeah, he's number 12 in real life. And then we have Troy Bowles, the son of Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl. He is a transfer from Georgia. He actually played a lot for Georgia last year, I believe, as a redshirt freshman. So that's good. Ended up getting transferred because it was pretty clear he wasn't going to start at Georgia next year. They got more people coming in, and it's fine. He's not going to start this year. He might play some this year. That might be the reality of the situation. However, I do like him. I think he's going to be a solid piece long term. Probably the leader to be that starting linebacker with Sullivan next year. And all things considered, I think you could do a lot worse for your fourth or fifth linebacker than Troy Bowles here. And Nathaniel Owusu Boateng is somebody that I'm just extraordinarily high on. I think he was a 5-star on Rivals, and Rivals isn't very good at predicting what things are. But still, I get to say he was a 5-star, and that's all that fucking matters to me. Now, all of that being said, I am a believer that Owusu Boateng here is going to be a phenomenal football player. I mean, look at this motherfucker's triceps right here. Those things are bigger than my goddamn face, all right? And he's fast. And he has incredible instincts based off of the little bit of highlight film that I watched, because you can't take anything from high school film other than raw athletic traits. But I think this kid is a superstar in the making. I think he knows he's going to play early. I wouldn't even be shocked if Michigan didn't redshirt him and he ended up playing on special teams or rotating in quite a bit at the actual linebacker position. That would not surprise me one bit if he ended up getting on the field early, even this year potentially. However, it also wouldn't surprise me if they just say, hey, we're going to redshirt you, get you in the weight room, because even though you're jacked as fuck, you probably need to get up to at least 220 and you're listed at 205. Or at least he came in at 205. So, nevertheless, I think he's going to be a fantastic player in a, honestly, killer recruiting class by Sharon Moore and company this past year. Nevertheless, that is all that I have for you today. So at this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. And now with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.